More than 1,600 cases of domestic violence were reported in Boone County last year.
That makes Boone County the fifth highest number of reported cases in the entire state. Tonight, in a special report, ABC 17's Taylor Petras takes us behind closed doors of domestic violence in mid-Missouri.
1,600 cases in Boone County. That means one person every 6 hours is a victim of domestic violence. A few weeks ago, a woman reached out to us saying she wasn't able to get into a shelter because they were all full. I spoke to a survivor about her journey with domestic violence more than 40 years ago, how things have changed over the decades, and if there are enough resources to help.
You either die or you're really injured, or it gets scary.
Get out! Get away from me! No!
Flashback to 1973. Lee Russell was 24 years old with 2 young children when she finally decided to leave an abusive husband.
And I was lucky. My brother told me I didn't have to put up with it, and saved me.
More than 40 years ago, survivors of domestic violence didn't have a place to run to. Now there are dozens of shelters across the state. True North in Columbia opened its doors 31 years ago.
No one should be treated that way. No one should be abused that way, whether it's physical or mental abuse.
In 2014, True North provided more than 6,000 bed-night stays for nearly 250 survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, a crime that Executive Director Barbara Hodges says is much more than just physical abuse.
They do beat them down psychologically. You know, you're no good. You can't do this. You can't do that. You'll never amount to anything. You have to have me to help you.
In 2015, nearly 44,000 victims of domestic violence came forward to police. The number of cases is up 12% compared to 10 years ago. But outreach advocate Maureen Qualheim says most victims don't report their abuse in fear of retaliation.
These numbers that we talk about, I mean, these are real people. These are not just files on someone's desk. They're real people affected by trauma and violence.
And sometimes finding a safe place for survivors to stay is a challenge. Last year, True North had to refer 17 families to other shelters because its beds were all full. The Rape and Abuse Crisis Service in Jefferson City had to turn away 9.
I mean, we'll have someone come in, and as soon as they go out, then someone else comes in.
Mary Cunningham has worked at Rape and Abuse Crisis Service, or RACS, for more than 20 years. She says their beds are full most of the time.
It used to be that, you know, if it was involved in the family, you kept it quiet and you kept it in the family.
40 years ago, it was the norm. And you couldn't go to the police because they'd say, well, what could you do different?
But now survivors and their families are staying at the shelter longer because there's nowhere for them to go after.
When there's not permanent housing, when there's not some sort of housing for someone to move into that's affordable for them, there's just no other options that are available.
RACS serves 9 counties in mid-Missouri, and last year in those 9 counties, around 3,500 cases of domestic violence were reported to the police. That means there would need to be 100 more shelters like RACS to give each survivor a safe place to sleep at night. Russell's advice to women who may find themselves in an abusive relationship is to get out.
Your life depends on it. Your children's well-being depends on it. Your grandchildren depend on it. The cycle has to be stopped.
Shelter directors say signs that someone is in an abusive relationship is if their partner tries to control them and isolate them from other people in their life. That control can come in many forms, physically, of course, mentally, and financially.
Taylor, thanks. And if you or someone you know is the victim of domestic violence, you can find a list of services, shelters, and hotline numbers right now on our website. Just go to abc17news.com.